Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to World News program coming to you live on All 24 News with me, Prince Zachary. These are your headlines. More than 10 people have been killed by Zionist airstrikes in the Gaza Strip, including a top commander of a Palestinian group. The Zionist airstrike killed a 5-year-old Palestinian girl in Gaza City after new attacks on the Gaza Strip. In the latest Chinese countermeasures of Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Friday said that the country would hold its cooperation with the U.S. on military and climate matters. Also coming up, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Philippines President on Saturday. The general elections on August 9th are being prepared for the Kenyan Independent Electoral and Voter Commission. Hello again, those were today's top stories. First in our topical news, let's start with the updates. More than 10 people have been killed by Zionist airstrikes in the Gaza Strip, including a top commander of a Palestinian resistance group. Palestinian groups responded to the raids with hundreds of rockets. Miriam Zian has the story.
Zionist army unleashed a wave of airstrikes in Gaza on Friday, killing 13 and wounding dozens. Taysir al-Jabari, one of the Islamic Jihad's senior leaders, was killed in the strikes, and the Zionist military claimed raids were against Islamic Jihad targets in Gaza, as tensions continue to rise between the two parties. Palestinian militants launched a barrage of rockets hours later, the Islamic Jihad said. In a nationally televised speech Friday night, Zionist Prime Minister Yair Lapid said, I quote, Israel isn't interested in a broader conflict in Gaza, but will not shy away from one either. Hamas spokesman Fawzi Barhoum said the enemy will pay the price.
The Israeli enemy who started the escalation against Gaza and committed a new crime must pay the price and bear full responsibility for it.
The leader of Islamic Jihad vowed to target Tel Aviv in return.
The Zionist enemy started this aggression, and it must expect us to fight non-stop. There will be no truce after this bombing. There are no red lines in this battle. Tel Aviv will also be one of the targets of the resistance missiles, as will all Zionist cities.
The Zionist military is warning this latest operation, codenamed Break-in Dawn, could last for a week. The latest violence is the most serious flare-up between the Zionist entity and Gaza in just over a year. The 11-day war in May 2021 left more than 200 Palestinians and a dozen Zionists dead before a ceasefire was agreed.
Still in the same context, Zionist forces seen deploying tanks along the border with Gaza hours after a wave of Zionist airstrikes on the coastal enclave, killing at least 13 people, including a senior resistance group leader and a 5-year-old girl. The Zionist airstrikes killed a 5-year-old Palestinian girl in Gaza City after new attacks on the Gaza Strip. Ala Abdullah Riyad Qadoum was killed around Friday afternoon following Zionist airstrike in a neighborhood in the Gaza City. Ala's 6-year-old father, Abdullah, was also killed, and her 6-year-old brother was seriously injured as they were heading to the supermarket on a motorcycle. An eye for a historical glimpse or timeline about a series of Zionist assassinations. Let's follow this.
Palestinian nationalist who was a co-founder and secretary-general of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine was killed in a Zionist rocket attack in his office. The Palestinian group Hamas has confirmed that the leader of its military wing has been killed in a Zionist airstrike on a residential building in Gaza City. Sheikh Salah Shahada was among at least 15 people killed, including 8 children, in the missile attack. Zionist helicopters targeted and killed Yassin as he left prayers at dawn. It was Zionists' highest-profile assassination of a Palestinian in nearly 16 years. Hamas's Gaza leader Abdelaziz al-Rantisi was assassinated by Zionists. Rantisi and 2 bodyguards were killed when helicopters fired 2 missiles at his car near his Gaza City home. On Thursday, 1st January 2009, Zionist Air Force bombed the house of Nizar Rayan, a senior Hamas official in the Jabalia refugee camp. The blast killed Rayan, his 4 wives, and 11 children. The Zionist Air Force and Shin Bet conducted a targeted precision airstrike on November as part of Operation Pillar of Defense, killing Jabari while he was traveling in a car.
Following the attacks of the Zionist forces against the Gaza Strip, the world has reacted and condemned these brutal acts. The Algerian Foreign Ministry published a report where it has strongly condemned the brutal aggression by the Zionist forces and expressed its deep concern of any dangerous escalation. The Algerian Foreign Ministry said that Algeria calls upon the international community, especially the UN Security Council, to intervene urgently to stop these criminal attacks, to impose respect for the rights of the Palestinian people. The UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East peace process warned of the dangerous escalation and said that the launching of rockets must cease immediately, and he called on all sides to avoid further escalation. The Palestinian Authority condemned the Zionist aggression on the Gaza Strip and demanded its immediate cessation. The United States, for its part, called for the de-escalation in the Gaza Strip in a press statement. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby urged all parties to avoid further escalation. The Zionist army says it arrested 19 members of the Palestinian group Islamic Jihad in raids across the occupied West Bank after carrying out airstrikes against targets in Gaza Strip, according to a statement by the Israeli army on Saturday morning. The statement indicated that this was part of the campaign against the Islamic Jihad, as it put it. And for more insights on the suffering of the people in Gaza, 15 years ago, the Israeli forces have imposed a full siege on the enclave of the West Bank and Gaza. It strictly controls everyone and everything going in and out. It has further damaged Gaza's bleak economy and the dire living conditions of its 2 million people.
Gaza, the biggest prison in the world, hope in the horizon, and dreams facing a bitter reality. These people behind the barrier are not taken for hostages by one of the cartel gangs in Latin America, but they are just ordinary citizens in one region of Palestine, Gaza. In June 2007, the Zionist entity decided to impose a land, sea, and air blockade on the Gaza Strip. Zionist occupiers control Gaza's airspace and surrounding waters, as well as 2 out of the 3 border crossing points.
من 12 سنة و11 سنة وجاي والأمور تزداد سوء عنا.
يعني الوقالة راحت، عمل ما في الشهانة، أنا كرب أسرة وعندي زي أنا آلوفات في غزة. الحياة صارت كابونة، فهذه مش حياة.
The decision to impose a blockade on Gaza followed 2 important events: Zionist evacuation of its settlement from Gaza in 2005 and the rise to power of Hamas following the Palestinian parliamentary elections of 2006. The blockade has clear political objectives. It is a form of economic warfare intended to weaken Hamas rather than having security objectives. In 2006, senior advisor to then Prime Minister explained the goal of economic sanctions on Gaza were to hurt Hamas by putting the people of Gaza on diet, but not to make them die of hunger.
بالحصار والفقر اللي احنا عايشين فيه، احنا كعائلة ما فيش عنا مصدر دخل. الوضع الاقتصادي السيء خلاني اطلع وابحث عن فرص عمل. جوزي مش ملاقي، قلت انا اجرب.
Occupation forces restrict the importation of goods and materials, which they define as dual civilian military use, which it claimed could be used for terrorism purposes. In reality, many of the restricted items have included ordinary civilian items, such as fresh meat and notebooks. The blockade also includes travel ban for Palestinians. Going in or out of Gaza and the West Bank requires access permit, which is not given to anyone. This includes extreme need situations and sometimes never accepted.
صار سكر علينا كل منافذ الحياة، مناطق حدودية بنزرع، نواجه اطلاق نار، نواجه تجريفات في شبكات الري مش موفر عندنا كويس، الاسمده، كيماويات، المبيدات، جاءت من هنا رحت ارجع اشتغل الساعه ب5 شيكل، وبعض الايام بلاقي الشغل اروح في البيت.
Israel's occupation blockade on Gaza is internationally illegal. It is denial of basic human rights and contravention of international law and amounts to collective punishment. Moreover, Palestinians are facing all types of abuse and live under the fear of shelling which can happen at any moment.
And this is just in. The Palestinian Ministry or Health Ministry has announced that 15 Palestinians have been killed and more than 120 have been wounded after the brutal attack of the Zionist forces against Gaza. Moving on now to different world news. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Philippines President Fernando Marcos Jr. on Saturday. Blinken is visiting the Philippines as part of his 5-nation tour, which has already seen him stop off in Cambodia for meetings with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, amid rising tensions with China.
I think it really is evidence of exactly what you're saying, Mr. President. Our relationship is quite extraordinary because it is really founded in friendship. It's forged as well in partnership, and it's strengthened by the fact that it's an alliance as well. To your point, the people-to-people ties between us are almost unique, and it's something that we tremendously value in the United States, just as I know you do here. But we're also working together as partners in so many different areas, particularly economically. And of course, the alliance is strong and I believe can grow even stronger.
And for more updates about the ASEAN meeting, let's follow this report by Hussam Barkan.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi on Friday pulled out of the ASEAN meetings in Cambodia in protest of Japan's criticism of the military exercises of Beijing, which began on Thursday, August 4, in response to the U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken affirmed that the U.S. stands in strong solidarity with Japan amid very dangerous actions by China.
We stand in strong solidarity with our partner and ally, Japan, including with regard to the very dangerous actions that China has taken by firing off these missiles, including 5 that, according to Japan, have landed in its exclusive economic zone.
In turn, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi spoke to media on Friday on the sideline of ASEAN meeting and said the U.S. had spread some misinformation.
I've heard that U.S. Secretary of State Blinken had held his news conference and spread some misinformation and not speaking truthfully. So all the more it is important for me to clear the air and state the facts. This trip has seriously impacted China's sovereignty, seriously interfered our internal affairs, seriously violated the promise U.S. has made with China.
Prak Sokhon, who is the chair of this week's meeting, and Cambodia's foreign minister, said that ASEAN would follow the lead of the U.S. in adhering to the One China policy that recognized Beijing, not Taipei, diplomatically.
To avoid any misunderstanding and miscalculation, and to work together where interests align, and to reaffirm the adherence to One China policy.
Southeast Asia ASEAN Regional Forum included officials from the United States, China, Russia and Japan, but it ended with no new agreements announced and closing statement deferred until Saturday, as Beijing and Washington traded accusations over a visit this week by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan that has enraged Beijing.
And in the latest Chinese countermeasures of Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Friday said that the country would halt its cooperation with the U.S. on military and climate matters. Let's follow this report.
The plane came and left and she walked on China's forbidden lands, every step a disregard of Beijing's continuous warnings. Precisely that disregard has so angered Beijing, and the warnings against Pelosi's visit to Taiwan have pushed China to translate them into action. The Foreign Ministry announced 8 countermeasures, with China halting ties with the United States on a range of critical issues, from talks on the climate crisis to dialogue between both countries' military.
The US ploy to use Taiwan to contain China is purely a pipe dream, as it can never stop the historical trend of Taiwan's return to the motherland or the historical process of the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation.
This same strong tone is used there in the United States, with Washington accusing China of taking what it calls irresponsible steps by suspending key communication channels with the United States.
We'll keep our channels of communication with China open, with the intent of avoiding escalation due to misunderstanding or miscommunication. In the days to come, you will see the United States remaining steady.
China says it is continuing to conduct sea and air exercises around Taiwan, military exercises that the island describes as a simulation of a possible incursion. Beijing says its actions are justified and that the visit violated its One China principle and that it gravely undermines peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait.
One person was wounded and many buildings were destroyed in a residential area in the Ukrainian town of Kostyantynivka, an industrial town in the eastern Donetsk region. The conflict has settled into a direct confrontation between Russia and Ukraine, especially in the east and the south of the country. Still with the Russia-Ukraine file, the head of Amnesty International in Ukraine is quitting the human rights body after the group accused Ukraine's armed forces of endangering civilians by basing troops in residential areas during the conflict in the country. Oksana Pokalchuk, national Amnesty leader, said on Facebook late on Friday that the Ukrainian office has consistently noted that the information that Amnesty issued on August the 4th should take into account the position of the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Amnesty International report on Ukrainian forces has enraged authorities. President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed his refusal of the report, accusing it of standing with the aggressor. This comes at a time when Russian forces are furiously shelling the region of Kharkiv amid European watch.
Top Ukrainian officials on Thursday dismissed a report by Amnesty International that Kyiv's military tactics put civilians at risk, calling it unfair. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky angrily denounced the report, saying Amnesty International tries to amnesty what he called the terrorist state and shift the responsibility from the aggressor to the victim.
We saw today a completely different report from Amnesty International, which unfortunately tries to amnesty the terrorist state and shift the responsibility from the aggressor to the victim.
Russian forces continue their intensification of airstrikes on many eastern Ukrainian cities. According to the statement posted by the prosecutor's office, a public transport stop near the market in the northeast of Kharkiv was shelled, leaving around 8 deaths and more than 20 wounded.
This is genocide, and we are talking about it every day. It was not a military target. There was no military purpose in today's shelling. Armed forces of Ukraine, weapons or National Guard were not positioned here. There was nobody else except for local residents. It is an ordinary market.
In a statement, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg announced that the war in Ukraine is the most dangerous moment for Europe since World War II, and Russia must not be allowed to win.
This is the most dangerous situation in Europe since World War II. If President Putin even thinks of doing something similar to a NATO country, as he has done to Georgia, Moldova or Ukraine, then all of NATO will be involved immediately.
As Russia's Supreme Court designated Ukraine's Azov regiment as a terrorist group, families of the fighters are battling for the release of their relatives. Many of the mothers, wives, and family members of the regiment are still rallying against the Russian decision of designating them as terrorists.
Back to the Gaza airstrikes, the death toll rises to 15. while 125 people are injured, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. Also, the European Union calls for maximum restraint on all sides in the Gaza Strip. The Zionist attacks target residential areas throughout the Gaza Strip, but no casualties were reported, and more than 600 housing units have been destroyed by the Zionist air raids. Iran elite Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commander said Zionist entity would face heavy price for attacking Gaza. And Quds brigades launched 200 missiles targeting Zionist-occupied areas. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Friday stated that Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Joe Biden have a special channel for communicating. Speaking to Russian media after the ASEAN summit in Phnom Penh, Lavrov said Russia is ready to discuss an exchange of prisoners between Russia and the US within the framework of agreed upon by the two leaders.
Speaking about an exchange of prisoners between Russia and the US, there is a special channel of communication agreed upon by presidents. No matter what anyone says publicly, this channel remains relevant. If the Americans decided to rely on public diplomacy and make loud statements that they are going to take some steps, that is their business. And I would say it's their problem.
Moving on to other stories now. According to the California Highway Patrol, a Mercedes-Benz sedan caused a crash involving as many as 6 cars near a gas station southwest of downtown Los Angeles. Several people were thrown from the cars and 2 vehicles caught fire. 5 people were killed, including a baby, according to authorities.
It looked like the whole intersection from corner to corner was on fire. A lot of sparks and like electricity. So I just was under the impression that really at first I thought that they dropped a bomb on us. Yeah, I thought it was another world war had started off with that kaboom, but then I realized it was a car into the sign. And once the smoke, the fire kind of went away and electricity and kind of the booming left, I realized that it was 2 cars there. You could see the people on fire, and that's just sad, you know. I really pray for the family and the community.
Flash flooding triggered by a near-record downpour on Friday over one of the hottest, driest spots on Earth has stranded nearly 1,000 people inside California's Death Valley National Park and forced its temporary closure. About 60 cars belonging to park visitors and staff were buried in several feet of debris at the inn at Death Valley. Croatian authorities said on Saturday that 12 people were killed and 31 injured. 18 of them are in critical conditions when a Polish bus filled with religious pilgrims heading to a Roman Catholic shrine in southern Bosnia slipped off a road and crashed near Varazdin in northwestern Croatia early in the morning. Firefighters and medical teams were deployed to the site of the crash. An investigation into the cause of the accident was underway. Indiana became the first state in the nation to approve abortion restrictions since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, as the Republican governor quickly signed a near-total ban on the procedure shortly after lawmakers approved it. The ban, which takes effect on September 15th, includes some exceptions. Abortions would be permitted in cases of rape and incest before 10 weeks post-fertilization to protect the life and physical health of the mother. The general elections on August 9th are being prepared for the Kenyan Independent Electoral and Border Commission. According to a poll of voting intentions released this week, former Prime Minister and opposition leader is currently leading the race for president of Kenya with 47% of the vote, ahead of his main competitor, who would receive 41%. Kenya is frequently cited by the international community as a stabilizing force in the unrest-plagued Horn of Africa and a dependable ally of the West. And finally, to some economy news, the Bank of England raised interest rates on Thursday despite warnings that a severe recession is coming. Now it is expected that the rates will reach 13% now, in addition to control the current inflation. The move was the biggest since 1995.
The Bank of England increased interest rates by the highest in 27 years in an effort to control inflation on Thursday, which is now expected to reach 30%, despite warnings that a severe recession is coming. Reeling from flowing energy prices caused by the Russian military operation in Ukraine, the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee voted 8-1 for a half-rate point increase in bank rate to 1.75%, the highest level since late 2008.
Returning inflation to the 2% target remains our absolute priority. There are no ifs or buts about that. At this meeting, the committee voted to increase bank rate by 0.5 percentage points to 1.75%.
Meanwhile, all possibilities, according to Government Andrew Bailey, are on the table for the Bank of England's upcoming meeting in September and beyond.
Policy is not on a preset path, and what we do this time does not tell you what we're going to do next time. All options are on the table for our September meeting and beyond that.
The Bank of England warned that Britain was experiencing a recession with an output decline of 2.1% from peak to trough, similar to a downturn in the 1990s, but much less severe than the impact of COVID-19 and the recession brought on by the 2008-2009 global financial crisis.
With this, ladies and gentlemen, our program draws to a close. Thank you for tuning into our channel. This is Karim Zachary signing off. Bye for now.